Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. You guys know what it is. It is Farabaugh Friday here on Steelers Afternoon Drive. Not Alan Saunders joining me, as noted by the name. We got Nick Farabaugh here with us. Nick, what's going on?
Yeah, what's going on, Smitty? It's always good to be on the pod, of course. Alan,
It's been a couple
you,
weeks, actually. I went back and looked. It's been 2
yeah, it's
weeks,
been
I
a
think
little bit,
so.
hasn't it?
Yeah.
Alan has been dominating this podcast and gave his thankfulness yesterday. Well, now he should be. He is thankful that he has a day off of the podcast because he's been grinding on here. So I'll fill in today for a little bit, and always exciting to talk a little Steelers. I give a little bit of a different perspective, I think, sometimes than Alan. So,
Yeah.
always interesting to mix it up.
Sure. And I'm sure Alan will be very thankful when he gets his voice back and back to 100% as well. That's actually why he's not on here. But this is typically a day that Nick would be on here anyway. So I'm not saying it works out perfectly because I obviously don't want Alan to be sick, but it is a Farabaugh Friday, which we always enjoy here on the show. Nick, we will do our predictions later in the show. We're going to talk about some interesting matchups in this game against the Bengals. First and foremost, let's talk about players that aren't going to be part of the matchup. Minkah Fitzpatrick set to miss his fourth straight game. Mont Adams also going to miss this one. Looked like he was a little bit closer. It seemed like he was starting to work his way back. Minkah still hasn't practiced as he tries to come back from this hamstring injury, which we know can be very tricky. But without those guys, you could look at what the blueprint would be against Cleveland, and maybe it's just the exact same thing. Obviously, Trenton Thompson is a guy that we expect to start and make his place again. But now you don't even have like Elijah Riley behind him as the backup safety. They're going to have to probably elevate somebody from the practice squad. How do you think that they make up for this absence again for a second straight week against a Cincinnati offense that doesn't do things the exact same way as the Cleveland offense?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Trenton Thompson's definitely going to start. That makes
Right.
sense to me. Killebrew is your only backup safety. Technically, Pat Pete
Mhm.
will probably get some work back there. He has in recent weeks. I don't know if we're going to see anyone come up. I don't think Eric Rowe's quite ready yet to come up as that vet DB. Jalen Elliott is still on the roster. Maybe he gets
Yeah,
the
Jalen
call.
Elliott was the one I was thinking about
But
before Rowe, just because of the time.
yeah,
Like, we haven't
I'll
seen
just say
enough of him.
this. I will say this. I didn't get any indication this week that he was on the way up.
Okay.
So three safeties, I guess, into this one, which is interesting. Maybe Shannon Sullivan gets some work back there. I think
What
that's
about, let me ask this, because we saw him play a little bit of safety in that Thursday night game. Could Darius Rush get a helmet in this one?
yeah. I think he will. I think they kind of have to, and I think it's interesting, because I do expect them. I do expect we're going to get another elevation this week for Tariq Carpenter because Blake Martinez and Miles Jack probably are not quite ready to go yet.
Yeah.
So I do think Tariq Carpenter is going to come up for special teams purposes and all of that. Make sure they have four linebackers to work with. But when you do that, obviously you have to make another person inactive. So you have the two guys inactive. But I think Pierre, I don't think James Pierre is going to play. Personally, if he doesn't play,
Shoulder,
I
right?
think if he doesn't play, Rush just gets one, kind of by
Yeah.
virtue. So yeah, I think Darius Rush might have a shot here to play in those sub packages, which I think is interesting to see. I do think, Mon Adams is close. Like Mon Adams will play next week, for sure. I think he's getting there. They're kind of testing it out, getting him ready to go. I think Minkah, meanwhile, is still ways away. We'll see kind of where he's at. But obviously, to me, Minkah has a significant injury. Each week he is out. I think they've done well without him. I think they have really fought hard and persevered without him, but obviously, when he is back, they are going to be a much better defense than they were right now. Even if Thompson plays well, and I'll give a shout out, I think DeMonte Casey's played quite well in the absence of Minkah Fitzpatrick. So I do think there are some positives, but obviously Minkah, whenever he comes back, is going to be a huge difference maker.
That seems to be the theme, is guys stepping up, with the injuries. Casey's played better with Minkah out. Trenton Thompson obviously stepping up in a big way. You look at the linebacker room, you couldn't have asked for a better performance from a Landon Roberts than what he gave you last Sunday. And I thought Mykal Walker played very well in considering the circumstances as well in spot duty, playing 84% of the snaps. Didn't see any of Mark Robinson like we thought we would in this matchup, specifically against Cleveland. And Cincinnati makes more sense for Walker anyway, so you would assume that he plays a good portion of this game too. Is that how you see it as well, Nick? You think we see a lot of Landon Roberts and Walker for this one?
Absolutely. I think those two are your starters. Even when Blake Martinez and Miles Jack are up to speed, those are your two starters.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion. I think they see more long-term upside in a guy like Mykal Walker. We're talking about a guy that's only 26 years old. If he ends up being a decent starting level player, that's a guy that could be here for a little bit, um, which can obviously shorten up the gap.
Situation with him, like, how did he land into the Steelers' arms like this, where they had him on the practice squad?
Yeah, kind of odd. The Falcons released him, and then he didn't catch on with any other team for a
Yeah.
significant period of time. Went to Chicago, but they had like 10 linebackers. The Raiders never really took him that seriously as an option. The Steelers did, though. They like the tape. He's kind of an interesting player because in 2021, he was playing really well to start the year, then suffered an injury, never really looked like himself after that, and kind of got
Mhm.
phased out. But before that, he had a reputation as a really solid linebacker, a really good coverage linebacker. So a versatile player and really smart. So I'm kind of interested to see what we see in Mike Walker. Maybe he doesn't need to be. Maybe the issue was that they made him be the alpha dog of the room. He was the green dog.
Yeah.
He was the main tackler. He was that guy. He is what Landon Roberts is right now.
Mhm.
Maybe the issue is that he had too much on his plate. Maybe he, as a secondary rotational piece, maybe that's where he fits in. And maybe really, when you look at it, I mean, the Falcons linebacker core is like it's not an elite room, but they have some young guys they probably wanted to see, and maybe they were just out on him, which is what it is. Sometimes, though, everyone assumes sometimes when a guy gets cut and is kind of out there, he's not always at anything. But listen, that before, some of these guys have turned into legitimate guys. Montravius Adams was a guy they nabbed off the Saints practice squad at one
Mhm.
point. He's obviously
Yeah.
turned out to be a decent player. Sometimes it just happens that way. Some guys, I mean, James Harrison got cut how many times? I mean, these guys sometimes do slip through the cracks, even when they play that much. It can happen. I don't think he's going to be like a star or anything, but can he be a solid rotational piece? If the tape holds from what he did on Sunday, he had a great game against the Browns, I thought. So if they can hold, I think they have an opportunity here to maybe get a guy that can legitimately be a rotational piece for them, especially with how kind of unsure next year's linebacking core is, just
Yeah.
because how long is Cole Holcomb out? How long is Quan out? And do you resign Quan and all of that? So certainly I feel like Michael Walker has a future investment. So I expect him to be a starter as long as he continues to play well.
Yeah, and let's stick on the defensive side of the ball. I know that I want to get your take on the offense, obviously, because we haven't had you on here since the offensive personnel has switched a little bit on the staff. But defensively, there's one matchup on here that I think everybody's kind of circling. Obviously, it's not going to be Joe Burrow throwing him the ball, but Jamar Chase, obviously, somebody you always have to keep close tabs on. Steelers fans very elated with the early returns of the Joey Porter Jr. investment. Think that we see a lot of that matchup on Sunday. Like, I don't know that we're going to see shadowing, but I think that the two are going to see quite a bit of each other.
Yeah, I think they're going to see a lot of each other, man. That's a fun matchup. This is Joey's biggest matchup of the year to me, just in terms of what he's going to actually face in premier receivers. He faced Devontae Adams a little bit, right? But he was just sub
Yeah.
packages. So not really. But
Yeah.
now he's got Jamar Chase twice. And I think that's
Mhm.
going to be really fun to watch. Because Jamar is a different style than anyone he's faced. Not quite the route runner Coop is, right? Amari Cooper is one of the best route runners in the NFL, but Chase is an elite athlete, probably the best athlete Joey has faced at this point, in my opinion. Can win the ball above the rim, can get open. Like I think Cooper to me is one of like the top 5 route runners in the game, but I think
Mhm.
you also look at Chase, he's not that far behind. So it's going to be a fun matchup because let's see what Joey's made of. Now, I think that you have to give him some help. I would like to see them put someone over the top for him and not leave him on an island because I don't care like who you have on him. I don't even know if I would trust the best corner in the game to guard that guy all game one on one. I just think you're asking for trouble with Jamar Chase like that. No T Higgins, I think, allows them to do that a little bit too. They don't
Yeah.
have the guy that historically, not that Chase hasn't had good games against the Steelers, he has had good games against them, but historically, the guy that has really killed Pittsburgh has been T. Higgins, where they'll focus a lot on Chase and T. Higgins will just rip off play after play after play, and it feels like they can't stop him. Well, he's out, so I'm kind of interested to see what they do here. Can't let Tyler Boyd just like kill them. Obviously, can't let Joe Mixon kill them on the ground. But I think if you can bracket Jamar and kind of stop him, I think the biggest reason why you might be able to see Jamar slow down a little bit. What is Jake Browning's deep ball? Like, where is it, right? That's such a big part of this offense is the Burrow
Mhm.
to chase deep ball. Like, without it, are you really threatened to play that far off of Jamar Chase? Like, I think that's the question. Or can you play up on him a little bit more? And can you do some different things there? Because how is Jake Browning's offense going to operate? Like we saw last week, they ran basically the Burrow offense. That's because that was the Burrow game plan. And Browning didn't look very good, to be quite honest with you. He looked okay, but didn't look particularly good. So are we going to see a DTR-ish offense where they try to get Chase in space and let him cook for Yak? Um, I don't know. I don't think so. I think you have to still throw that deep ball a little bit. It's part of your identity. It's part of your offense. And Jamar is so good at it. So I feel like you have to do that. But I don't know. I think Joey's going to have a handful in, though. This is going to be tough. I think he got better against Cooper the more he faced him, but never was perfect on that final drive. They got him twice. So I'm interested to see what he does to counter that. But we'll see with Joey. This is a big test for him this week, especially with the type of athlete he is facing in Jamar Chase. And so there's really not a great matchup on the roster for Jamar Chase. I just don't think Joey is quite there yet, but let's see if he rises to the occasion. Obviously, that'll be a huge statement.
Yeah, I mean, and with what they have, obviously with no Burrow, with no T Higgins, you would think they would like to get Joe Mixon going on the ground first and foremost. So obviously the Steelers would love to slow down the run and make Browning have to make plays with his arm to beat them. Who do you think is favored in that matchup, though? Like, how do you feel about the Bengals' run game going up against the Steelers' front seven?
The Steelers should be able to slow that team down. And the reason I say that is because your whole objective to me is going to be wanting to get Browning to beat you, right? Like
Hmm.
that was what the game plan was last week. It's like you're not going to let Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford give DTR enough help. You're going to make DTR force things, and if he beats you, he beats you. And for the large part, he didn't. They only allowed 13 points, and they punted, I believe, 9 times. So that game plan worked to me. If the offense was even semi-competent, they win that game. So really, to me, you look at that performance and you say, okay, you feel good about that. Browning's a different player than DTR, obviously, but similar in the way that they kind of operate in terms of reading defenses. So to me, when I look at Cincinnati's rushing offense, it's not a prolific rushing attack, like at all. It's one of the worst in the league right
Hmm.
now. In fact, but the last week they did get a nice game out of their rushing offense. I think they ran for 136 yards, but I mean, really, that is a tough sell. They only average about 80 yards per game, and I like Joe Mixon, but this Bengals line, it's a solid group, but it's not a group that you look at and say that's a great run blocking team. Like
Right.
Jonah Williams, solid pass protector, like not an elite run blocker, right? Like you don't look at this team and say that's an elite run blocking group. Cordell Volson and Ted Karras and Alex Kappa, like solid players. I'm just not sure they're great, elite run blockers. Orlando Brown's a great run blocker, but
Hmm.
like it is not a unit to me that you should be getting pounded on. Like I don't think you should be. So I think as long as they hold still and keep their gaps, I think they'll be okay. We've still seen one or two runs per game where it looks like it could go. The Packers game, Dylan had his big burst up for 40. Even against the Browns, there was one play where Alex Highsmith comes from behind at like the last second and makes a tackle, but Hunt would have been one on one in the alley with Trenton Thompson. And if Thompson doesn't make the tackle, he's gone for like 90 yards. Like it was complete bust. So there are some things to me to still work on, but I think the run defense has gotten a lot better. Like Cam Hayward's inclusion, I think, has been great. The more Landon Roberts plays, the better it gets because he's a great run defender. And I'll
Yep.
say this: Trenton Thompson's a really good run defender too. I think, like the thing about the replacements they have in is you might have suspect coverage options, but what they don't have to me is suspect run defenders. Like all these guys are good run
Hmm.
defenders, and even more so, with Montravius Adams being out, it's allowed more for Isaiah Loudermilk to play, and Loudermilk's been pretty good in run defense. So they've had guys step up in run defense that I think has really allowed them to do that. But the Bengals have been pass first all year. So with Browning, are they pass first or are they going to go to more run first? I know for sure if I was Zach Taylor, I'd lean on Mixon. But do
Hmm.
you trust your run game to do that? I don't know. I think the Steelers run defense in recent weeks has been pretty solid. Like, it's not been a
Right.
bad group. Like, the stats will tell you, right, it's not a good group. But in recent weeks, I mean, we are talking about a defense that has certainly played better than its stat line. And so, really, when I look at it,
Well,
I'll
they're
say,
also Nick, there was a point in this year where they were giving up over 170 on the ground just a few weeks ago.
yeah,
They're now at 127.7 yards on the ground.
yeah, in
I
the
mean, to
last
show
three
you what they've
weeks,
done in the last few weeks.
last 3 weeks, averaging just over a hair of 100. So, I
Yeah,
mean, I'll say this: if you allow 30 carries for 105 yards, I mean, I don't think the Steelers are going to
right.
be mad at that at all. You're going to put Jake Browning in a lot of bad areas to me. The Browns, for example, only ran for like 95 yards. And obviously that made them very one dimensional. So I think as long as you can make them one dimensional, that's what you want. And so secondary is just going to have to make plays, man.
Yeah, I agree. I want to talk about the Steelers offense though, because we haven't gotten your take on this on the podcast at least yet. But obviously, over the last week, the Steelers finally listened to all those chants being heard on College Game Day, the Pat McAfee Show, at Penguin games, at the Capitol. Matt Canada was relieved of his duties as offensive coordinator. Running back coach Eddie Faulkner takes over as OC, although quarterback coach Mike Sullivan will be the one calling plays on game day. Nick, you can't implement a brand new offense in week 12. Anybody that expected there to be some like sweeping overhaul of the offense, I think was delusional going into this. Kenny Pickett confirmed that that wouldn't be the case when he spoke to the media this week. But how can this offense look different? Is it just a matter of play sequencing, building one thing off of another, and doing things a little bit different on game day? Or like, what can we expect from this offense if there is going to be anything that looks different about it?
Yeah, no, it's just small tweaks. Listen, they didn't change the entire run scheme either, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's better, right? They just went to more pulling guards. Broderick Jones went in the lineup. Like, it was just little things, little tweaks, details, running out of lighter personnel, stuff like that, spreading them out of shotgun, like different things. More Jalen Warren, like that, like personnel adjustments. So to me, there are some tweaks you can make. I don't think there's like super meaningful tweaks. Like, we're not going to see, for example, we're not going to see them run Mike McDaniel's offense all of a sudden. This is going to be Canada's offense still. But you
Right.
can take different spots of the playbook that haven't been highlighted enough and put them in there. Their play action series over the middle of the field, it absolutely exists. It exists in that playbook. They just didn't run it a lot. So can
Mhm.
you use play action and motion to be more meaningful components of the offense? The biggest tweak to me that can be made isn't even schematic. It's just timing, details, communication. Stop killing yourselves. That's what the biggest thing to me is. When they like, I've seen a lot of people credit the Browns defense for how they looked last week. Not that the Browns defense isn't a great defense. They are. But I feel like a lot of their issues last week were self-inflicted. How many times did we see
Mhm.
Deontay Johnson and Kenny Pickett off the mark from one another? How many times do we see timings on screens off the mark, miscommunications on play calls? It just mounts and mounts and mounts. And so a lot of negativity comes about from those. And so to
Mhm.
me, that's the biggest thing that can be tweaked. The timing on screens, like, that should be a thing that is done by week 4. The Steelers are a terrible screen team because they're terrible with rhythm and timing stuff. I also just feel like in rhythm and timing routes, they're not good at it. When Kenny Pickett tries to throw with anticipation, either one, he just goes off the read and completely collapses, or two, what actually happens is the receiver's not ready for it. Like, that happens a few times. They run the wrong route. Like, a lot of it to me is really just get on the same page, guys. Like, they need
Mhm.
more out of Kenny Pickett. There's no doubt about that. I want to see more out of Kenny Pickett. I want to see them test his ability to throw the middle of the field. I don't care if it leads to potential turnovers. They need to. Like, because right now you're going 3 and out every series. Like, that is a turnover. Like, I think people don't realize that. Like, you are essentially turning the ball over every time, going 3 and out and not getting these sustained drives. You are taking a run game that is giving you over 150 yards every single time you go out there and completely squandering it. Like, if the run game gets you from the 20 to the 50, your pass game should be able to get you into the 20. You don't even need to get touchdowns. Like, At this point, I would accept 6 Boss field goals. Like, that would be acceptable.
Yeah.
Like, they just need to get over into plus territory and stop hurting themselves to get out of plus territory consistently. So that's the biggest thing that can happen to me is get those cleaned up, and that can be fixed. Like the communication stuff can be fixed in a week. That should be a week. That's how easy that should be fixed. Run the right route depth. Like that is something that can be fixed. All of this can be fixed in a week. And so to me, that's where they can make the most. Hey, I would like to see them attack the middle of the field more, open up that area of the playbook a little bit more. I would like to see them continue to run Jalen Warren a little bit more. I would like personally to see just more route concepts in general. I would like to see the route tree get better. Like what I wrote this today, I would like to see them self scout a little bit.
Yeah.
Like how many times do they throw the ball to the running back in the flat? All the time, right? How about we turn that into a wheel route once and try and get a guy open, or you make the guy run out to the flat and then cut back in on an angle route. Like let Jalen Warren and Najee Harris do that. They can do that. They're good running backs. They're good receiving backs. Like self scout a little bit and break tendency. I would like to see them do that a little bit. Again, these are things that I know are in the playbook and they just haven't used them. So I think things like that can definitely help them. These little tweaks we're talking about. I don't need this offense to be an elite offense. I don't want it to go to top 5 all of a sudden. Like it's not going to happen, right? They're not going to become a top 5 offense. They don't even have
Yeah.
the talent to do that, to be quite honest with you. I just need it to
Right.
be 18th. Like that's what you need to be. You have a top 5 rushing offense the past 3 or 4 weeks in the
Mhm.
NFL right now. So if your passing offense is even like 16th in the NFL, you're a good offense. Like that's a solid offense. And if they could score 23, 24 points a game, like with how the defense is playing, I think you feel good about it.
Yeah, I mean, since week 7, their run game EPA per play is 3rd, their rushing success rate is 4th. They've been cooking on the ground for sure. I think, that's why it's almost, I mean, definitely concerning, but like really have to wonder how are they not able to build any type of passing game with the success that they're having on the ground and teams having to key on that. That's the next step for this offense, right? Is to find some way to keep these teams honest and not be able to just totally commit to the run game.
That's it. I mean, listen, the Browns sold out for the run game and they still ran it down
Right.
their
Yeah.
throats. Like that
Hmm.
was the most impressive thing to me. When people were asking, is the run game legit? They faced 7, 8 guys in the box and still kicked the Browns' teeth in, like consistently. So to me, that was like the most impressive thing. The running backs created. I thought the blocking was pretty good. Like everyone is clicking on all cylinders in the run game right now. It is going
Hmm.
perfectly. The detail in the run game is where it needs to be. That's why, right? They hit timing perfectly. The cuts are right on time. The double teams are reaching to the right spots. Like all of this is going well. But here's the thing: when you have a running game like that, why is the reward in the passing game a 2-yard flat to Allen Robinson? Like, why is that the play you build off of? Like, no one is threatened by that. And what
Hmm.
that does to the run game then is, okay, this corner is going to see Allen Robinson coming in motion. He's not going to back off. He's going to creep up. So that guy gets in the run fit then. And so that can lead to negative runs if they just shoot the hole, which is exactly what happened on Najee Harris's 5-yard loss that kicked them out of field goal range when they got to the 40-yard line. And so that would have put them in the lead and made them 13-10. That obviously would have been huge for them if they had just kept moving the ball down the field a little bit. And so to me, the next step for this team is just it doesn't need to be even a good passing game. It just needs to be an average passing game. And
Right.
so I mean, they have the talent capable. I don't even care what you think of Kenny Pickett. If you think Kenny
Hmm.
Pickett sucks, cool. I see Zach Wilson move the football up and down the field still. He turns the ball over, but he moves the
Hmm.
football. Like, I see all
Right.
these bad quarterbacks, like, moving the ball up and down the football field. Kenny Pickett can move the ball up and down the football field. He did it last year. Like, you can't tell me he can't do it. He's done it at times this year. Like, he has done it. The Rams game comes to mind as a big game where I thought that was the best passing offenses like looked all year. That game was they really were hitting on all cylinders. They were hitting on slants, they were hitting on back shoulders. Like I thought if they get 6 more Rams games from here on out in the passing game, they'll be fine. The stat lines won't be prolific. Kenny Pickett's stat line won't be super out of this world. He'll probably still get
Sure.
clowned for his lack of touchdown passes. But the
Hmm.
Steelers are going to win football games if they do that. If they can just hit the passes they need to hit, give him more layups too. I know he missed some of the layups, but there's things they can do to get there. But the biggest contingent I will say is they do need more out of him. They're they're getting
Hmm.
nothing out of Kenny Pickett right now. They're getting nothing out of him. He has been
Right.
terrible. He's been missing reads, but I don't think all of it is on him. He definitely shoulders weight. There's no doubt about it. But a lot of it is on detail, communication, and all that. So just beyond detail, communication, all that, they need more from Kenny Pickett. They need him to hit the layups. They need him to do that because, as I've said, I haven't said it on here, but when we were talking about Canada, it was a multi-layered problem, right? It wasn't just Matt Canada, it wasn't just the pass pro. It wasn't just Kenny Pickett. Like it was all like
Hmm.
everyone shoulders some of this blame. Matt Canada and Kenny Pickett probably more than the rest of them. Well, now you take one of those out. Hopefully, Eddie Falker's detail-oriented coaching catches on, and they are able to do that. And Kenny Pickett is able to see even modest returns. I don't need him to have a great stat line. It would be cool if he threw for 3 touchdowns. That would be great. But listen, if he throws for 220, 1 touchdown, and no picks, and they run for 175, I would bet they're going to win most games as long as they don't turn the ball over there because I think they'd be able to move the football very well. They'd be able to play ball control. And it would mean Kenny Pickett to me is hitting his throws that he needs to hit. And that's what you need right now. I just need game manager stuff from him. That's all you
Hmm.
need. This run game, he's not even game manager level right now, though. And I do wonder how much of
Sure.
that was around him and guys getting into his head. So hopefully this reset means something for Kenny Pickett. He's the biggest thing to watch this week, but details, all of that, also something to watch this week is very important against the Bengals. And I haven't even mentioned it. They should be able to run on this Bengals run defense. It's the second worst run defense in the NFL. So
Hmm.
the safeties cannot tackle. That is like the biggest thing. The safeties cannot tackle. Now they had Jordan Battle in there last week. Sounds like he's going to start. He did tackle pretty well, but you should be able to run on that team. If you can run on the Browns, you should be able to run on this Bengals unit, even with Sam Hubbard back. I think you should be able to run pretty well on this team.
Last thing before we get to predictions, you mentioned that George Pickens, who was back to practice, good to go for Sunday, talked a little bit about this too, with the offense and stuff like that. First time he spoke, and since there was an offensive coordinator change, anything interesting come of that?
Yeah, I thought he placed some blame on the receivers, which I thought was interesting. And I think it is valid to a degree. Obviously, I think you think Deontay George and that unit is probably one of the better units on the team, let alone the offense. But
Hmm.
I do think their detail has been lacking, whether, not being on the same page. I don't know whose fault the communications were, but they certainly need to be on the same page as their quarterback. They certainly need to run better routes. I just want more effort throughout the route. I want more detail. I want more. I want better route kind of depth and taking it to the right areas of the concept. I just think that there are better details they can get better at. So I think there are things that they can do to get better. I think I would like to see them be more consistent too. I just think sometimes with these guys, it's a roller coaster ride where you have two wide receiver one talents in Deontay
Hmm.
Johnson, George Pickens, and sometimes they don't play like it. So it'd be nice to get a little more consistency and again, just get back to the basics of it. So I think there are some things they can do better in that area. I also would include Pat Fryermuth in this as well,
Hmm.
getting him out in the slot, running crisper routes, letting him kind of do things there. I think people are being a little too harsh on Pat Fryermuth. I get he hasn't played well this year, but he's played in essentially 4 games all year, and he hasn't been great most. But one thing I will say is he hasn't been used right, straight up. We're talking about a guy that's being asked to base block DNs. That's not him. He's a slot receiver. He's a big receiver. That's what he is. He's not
Hmm.
this blocking inline tight end. They just need to stop making him that and just let
Yeah.
him cook from the slot. I would like to see him kind of go there more than that. So we'll see kind of where they go. The offense, man, I think with some tweaks can look better. Again, I'm not asking for the world to move here. I don't think they need to. I think they just need to get to a basic passing offense level so teams have to respect it and they can hurt teams with it. Because the passing game obviously has been, I mean, they got nothing out of it last week, just
Yeah.
absolutely nothing. So
Right.
they just need a little bit, just a little bit out of it, and I think they'll be better.
Yeah, it's weird that you mentioned the misutilization of Pat Freiermuth. I mean, you used a third round pick to draft a guy to do what they're asking Freiermuth to do. Like you shouldn't even have to put him in that position. That's why you drafted Darnell Washington. But I digress, Nick. Let's get into some predictions. So not only the score, but I also want one bold prediction of something that is going to happen in this game. Whether
Okay.
that's somebody odd scoring a touchdown or somebody getting a turnover, something like that. Throw something out there for me.
All right. I do think the Steelers are going to win this game. Um, Listen, man, I think Jake Browning stinks. Maybe I'm wrong on this, and someone clips this and says, "Wow, what an idiot!" But I
Bold
don't think
take
he's very good.
exposed.
I do not think he's very good. So I think that they should be able to slow down this offense, even if they hit a few plays. And I really think they're going to be able to run the football very well in this game too. I think that's something that I think will really help this team in this game, be able to run the football, kind of get out in space, do some things. I think they'll be a little better in the passing game. No, Cam Taylor Britt is big in this game.
Mhm.
He's their
Yep.
ball hawk. If Kenny can take care of the football, I think they'll be okay. I think they'll get a turnover or two in this one too. So I think that'll help them. I have the Steelers winning this one 21-13. That's my prediction. I think they win. Um, pretty soundly in this one. I think they'll look like a better team. I like how the Steelers defense is going right now. Okay, my prediction is that you will see a an interception by Michael Walker. That's my prediction.
Okay. I like that one. I'm gonna say that Jake Browning tries to rely too heavily and forces our Chase and Joey Porter Jr. gets one on him. Um, Score wise, I was kind of in line. I'm in lockstep with you. But I'll do 22-10 Steelers in this one, which by the way, a double digit win. I mean, that's basically propping your feet up, eating popcorn, stress free for the Steelers. Like with the way that their games typically go, you get a double digit win. The fans are like, what is this? They're not
22
gonna know
to
what to
10
do.
win, but they go down 10-0 in the first quarter.
Hey, I wouldn't. Very possible. Wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah, right. Fourth quarter Kenny coming out to lift. But yeah, all I'm saying to everybody here is just look for some growth. Just look for details. Just look for Kenny Pickett hitting the layups. Like, folks,
Hmm.
the bar is so low right now. It is so low for the
Yeah.
passing game. I mean, the only passing game they have looked better than so far is the Tim Boyle Jets. Like that team, this is a terrible game that is going on right now with Tim Boyle. But
Hmm.
that like they the bar, folks, is 20 feet under the ground right now. So just ask. I'm just asking for a below average passing offense. I think that would get them.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Like 26th, 27, like 25th. Like they could be fine, even in that range.
They would be fine.
But okay, let's get out of here, Nick. Before we do that, of course, tell the people where they can find you and get more where you work.
Yeah, you could follow me at Farabaugh FB on X or Twitter, whatever you care to call it. Make sure to subscribe to the Steelers Now YouTube page as well, and make sure to read more at SteelersNow.com.
There we go. Like Nick said, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell here. Leave us a comment down below. Let's get your predictions as well in the comments here. If you're listening somewhere else, whether that's Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, whatever your podcast platform of choice is, be sure to leave us a 5-star review over there as well. I'm Zachary Smith, PGH, Nick Farabaugh, myself. Alan Saunders should be back on Monday. So until then, thanks for jumping in. Take another ride with us on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.